Vietnam became a subject of large-scale news coverage in the United States only after substantial numbers of U.S. combat troops had been committing to the war in the spring of 1965. Prior to that time, the number of American newsmen in Indochina had been small, fewer than 2 dozen even as late as 1964. But by 1968, at the height of the war, there were about 600 accredited journalists of all nationalities in Vietnam, reporting for U.S. wire services, radio, and television networks, and other major newspaper chains and news magazines. The U.S. Military Assistance Command in Vietnam, or the MACV, made military transportation readily available to news people, and some took advantage of this frequently to venture into the field and get their stories firsthand. The proximity to the battlefield carried obvious risks. More than 60 journalists were killed during the war. Many reporters, however, spent most of their time in the South Vietnamese capital of Saigon, which is now Ho Chi Minh City. And they got their stories from the Joint U.S. Public Affairs Office daily briefings, which soon became known as the 5 o'clock Follies. The Vietnam conflict is often referred to as the First Television War. Film from the Vietnam was flown to Tokyo for quick developing and editing, and then flown on to the United States. Important stories could be transmitted directly by satellite from Tokyo. There had been such discussion of the way television brought battles directly to American living rooms. But in fact, most television stories were filmed soon after a battle rather than in the midst of one, and many were simply controversial news stories. Indeed, most stories about the war on the nightly TV news were not film records fresh from Vietnam, but rather brief reports based on wire service dispatches and read by anchormen. The role of media in Vietnam War is a subject of continuing controversy. Some believe that the media played a large role in the U.S. defeat. They argued that the media's tendency towards negative reporting helped to undermine support for the war in the United States. Uncensored coverage provided valuable information to the enemy in Vietnam. However, many experts who have studied the role of media have concluded that prior to 1968, most reporting was actually supportive of the U.S. effort in Vietnam. The February 1968 assessment by Walter Cronkite, the anchor of the CBS Evening News, known as the quote-unquote most trusted man in America, that the conflict was mired in stalemate and was seen by many as a signal of a sea change in the reporting about Vietnam. And it is said to have inspired President Lyndon B. Johnson to state, "If I've lost Cronite, I've lost Middle America." The increasing skeptical and pessimistic tone of the reporting may have reflected rather the created similar feelings among the American public. Reporting from Vietnam was indeed uncensored, but during the entire war period, there was only a handful of instances in which the MACV found a journalist guilty of violating military security. In any case, American disillusionment with the war was a product of many causes, of which the media was only one. What most undermined support for the war was simply the level of American casualties. The greater increase in casualties, the lower level of opinion of support for the war.